Mother is after eggs. But getting them is not going to be easy. The geese will risk their lives to protect their eggs. If they lose them, they can't produce another clutch this season. The fox wins. She gives the first eggs to her young pups. And then heads back for more. Some of the eggs she stashes away. They will be food to help her through the coming winter. In just 3 weeks, she will steal over 800 eggs from the geese. But eating a big egg is not easy if one is rather small. It's a technique the pups haven't quite yet cracked. Mum shows how it's done. Termites, an important source of protein. But perhaps they are an acquired taste. He's off to search for something he might prefer. It's hard to know where to look. Or where it's safe to clamber. Different levels in the forest contain different foods, and some of the most delicious are in the very highest parts of the canopy, 50 meters above the ground. He's a couple of years old, and he's already getting adventurous. His mother could climb right to the top in 10 minutes or so if she wanted to, but she lingers to keep an eye on him. A fall from this height could be fatal. Where the gaps between the branches are too wide for him, his mother lets him use her body as a bridge. Only 10 meters to go before the top. But it's hard going for small hands. He's had enough. Time for a rest with Mother. And this is his reward. Ripe mangoes, sweet and juicy. There's so much he must learn. He will depend entirely on his mother until he's 7. It's the longest of all childhoods, except ours. A leopard gecko. It, like most geckos, is nocturnal, and it manages to get all the heat it needs from the rocks, which retain something of their warmth for several hours after the sun has set. This male is in search of a mate. She is less brightly coloured. They inspect one another. He collects her scent with his tongue and discovers that not only is she female, but she's sexually available. He's interested. He nibbles her neck and strokes her flanks, all part of his elaborate courtship routine. Copulation begins. This is the time in mammals and birds when the sex of the young is determined, but not in a number of reptiles, including geckos. Once again, it's temperature that profoundly influences their lives. The female goes away to lay her eggs. She has chosen a place where the temperature is about 31 degrees. As her body is the same temperature as her environment, she can't heat her eggs by sitting on them as warm-blooded birds do, so they're exactly the same temperature as the rocks beneath. After a couple of months, both eggs begin to hatch. The first to emerge is a male. And the second will be too. It's the temperature which has determined that. If it had been a few degrees lower, both eggs would have developed into females. Not much remains of the porpoise after the whales are through with it. Killer whales don't just target prey smaller than themselves. Off the coast of California, a grey whale and her baby are in serious danger. Once again, computer images give the underwater view of an extraordinary hunt. The grey whale calf is just a few weeks old. It's following its mother north towards the summer feeding grounds in Alaska. They've reached Monterey Bay, where a deep trench cuts in from the sea. As they move beyond the trench wall, the grey whales lose their cover. Out in the bay, the killer whales are listening for that telltale sound, the breathing of a great whale. Immediately, their behavior changes. The killers close ranks like a hunting wolf pack. The killer whales have caught up with the mother and calf. And now the chase is on. The grey whales try to outswim their attackers. Fast swimming pushes up the grey whale's breathing rate. A breathless calf is easier to catch. The killers work as a team. Their first goal is to separate the baby from its mother. The grey whale mother is a formidable adversary. She could seriously harm a killer whale with just one slap of her massive tail fluke. One of the attackers pushes between mother and calf. The strategy is working. The grey whales are forced apart. With the baby separated, the killer whales change strategy. Now their goal is to drown the calf. Hunting is only possible for 3 hours around low tide, when the mud banks are exposed. Razor-sharp oysters cover much of the shore. Beaching here could be lethal. The hunters need to find a stretch of shoreline with just the right slope. Too level, and the dolphins risk stranding. Too steep, and they can't force their prey from the water. Working as a team, the dolphins surround the fish, driving them towards the shore. Attacking in perfect synchrony, the dolphins create a bow wave. It carries their prey onto the muddy banks. other fish eaters profit from their daring. Herons and gulls follow every hunt. To get to the fish first, the dolphins drive themselves high up the bank. But if they go too far, they risk stranding. To prevent fish escaping between them, the dolphins all beach themselves on the same side. Always the right. But this has a cost. Each time they grab a fish, they also take in a mouthful of mud. The grit gradually wears down their teeth. But on one side only. In time, these teeth get so worn down that older dolphins can no longer hunt like this and must find other ways to catch fish. Here, there are other challenges. St Andrews Bay on South Georgia is packed with 500,000 king penguins. In spring, the chicks are left for days whilst their parents are away collecting food for them. There is a simple arrangement. The chicks must stay exactly where their parents left them to be sure of being found again. But this chick has decided to look around. There is a lot to be investigated. But it must not stray too far from its meeting place. This parent has returned with food in its crop. But its chick isn't where it left it. It's hard to stay put when there's so much to play with. Elephant seals are here too. Very mysterious. Finding it in the crowd of youngsters is not going to be easy. They must recognize each other by their calls. But to hear these in such a noisy colony, they must be within 15 meters of each other. reunited. This is a South American red-eyed tree frog, a close match for the leaves on which it habitually sits. The eggs are not very conspicuous either, just little blobs in transparent jelly, and they're always laid over water. They develop very rapidly. In less than a week, they've become recognizable tadpoles, almost ready for freedom. Then the jelly liquefies and they simply drop into the water beneath. But some don't survive long enough to do so. Wasps raid the cluster and carry off the unhatched tadpoles to feed their young. But the tadpoles are not entirely helpless. By the time they're 5 days old, they know when they're under attack, and what's more, they can do something about it. There. Quick wriggle, and the tadpole drops to safety. The alarm spreads quickly through the whole cluster, and they all take a dive. Their tails are not yet fully developed, but they can swim well enough to take refuge beneath the leaves of the water plants. So, if there's a choice between being carried off by a wasp and taking an early bath, there's no competition. To help her in her quest, she's equipped with 3 superpowers. First, an amazing approach to getting about. Portia is a jumping spider, able to leap up to 50 times her own body length. Nowhere seems beyond her reach. Next, her second superpower, superb eyesight. Essential if she's to distinguish her prey in all this clutter. Because her prey doesn't stray. Portia is a spider-eating spider. This raises a few problems. Her lunch is 3 times her size, packed with venom and surrounded by a sticky trap. Mission impossible? Not at all, because of her third superpower. Portia is a genius. She can map her world in 3 dimensions and formulate a plan of attack. She can have an idea. The web builder is blind. It won't have a clue that she's coming. Right on target, and safely behind those fangs. But a mind as active as Portia's can always do with more brain food. Here, there's no anchor point for the abseil. But Portia has another idea. Instead of going to the spider, she will bring the spider to her. She plucks the strands to imitate struggling prey. Drawing the spider in to its death. Here on the coast of Peru, there are so many seabirds fishing in the offshore waters that the cliffs are covered in droppings over a metre thick. Humboldt penguins regard the soft guano as a good material in which to dig their nest holes. But it's a messy business. It's the breeding season, and more hopeful nesters arrive, spotless from swimming in the sea. Time for the residents to get cleaned up and catch some fish for themselves and their chicks. To get to the sea, they cross the remains of an old nesting ground. Only 100 meters to go. But the beach is already crowded with sea lions. They too have come ashore to raise their young. And they don't like being disturbed. To get through such a minefield needs a bold and courageous leader. A brave start. A dead end. Now he's in trouble. This is going to need a bit of crowd surfing. But now all the sea lions are roused. Getting through them will be tricky. A cleansing bathe in the ocean. Well worth the effort. I'm in Arizona, and that at my feet is a lizard buried in the sand up to its neck. Even while it's buried, it can use the sunshine to warm its whole body. It can control the supply of blood to its head so that it pools in a cavity behind the eye. Soon, the blood there is as much as 5 degrees above the temperature of the rest of its body. Then the animal opens the major blood vessels in its neck, and the hot blood circulates so that its whole body is thoroughly warmed, even though it's still mostly below ground. This is a horned lizard, and very beautiful too. This particular species is called the regal horned lizard because it has this splendid crown of spikes at the back of his neck. When he's hidden, they break up the outline of his head, and so you hardly see him at all. And now, in the warmth of my hand and in the sunshine, I guess he's warmed up quite a lot. And if I put him down, he now, at last, may be able to run for it. And indeed he does. South African armadillo lizards, which live on these rocky outcrops, have a different solution to the problem of safe sunbathing. They've turned it into a social activity. Whole families of them live together in the crevices among the rocks, and in the morning they all emerge to warm up in the sun. Of course, there is safety in numbers. There are lots of eyes to spot danger if it appears. And when one sunbather takes fright, they all dive for safety. If a predator is quick, it is possible to grab one. But even then, an armadillo lizard is not going to be an easy meal. Oh. They have an additional form of defense. They bite their tails. The reason they do that is that it covers up their vulnerable underside and exposes only these very sharp, spiny scales, which is very good protection against predators like snakes or mongooses. And they stay like this for quite a long time before they're confident enough to uncurl. I'll put him down and see how he does. Forest once covered 80% of Europe. Now, only half of it remains. A brown bear. One of only 1,500 that are left in Finland's forests. Her cubs have recently emerged from their nursery den. The long summer days means there's plenty of time for play. With two boisterous cubs, it pays to rest whenever you can. But their mother must be on her guard. The cubs have spotted something. A large male looking for a mate. The cubs aren't his, so he might try to kill them. Their cubs are excellent climbers, and now they're beyond his reach, 15 meters up. Their mother warns him to keep his distance. But the cubs are coming down too soon. She can't take any chances. That was a close call. Finland's forests give us a glimpse of what Europe was once like. A land of endless wilderness where large animals roamed far and wide. The forests of central China, home to the golden snub-nosed monkey. They will not survive the fast-approaching winter unless they stock up on calorie-rich food. Top of their autumn menu, pine cones. They grew during the summer sunlight and are rich in fats. Few are now left, and time to gather them is running out. Dominant males patrol the troop, making sure they get the pick of the crop. As the number of pine cones dwindles, tensions between rival families increase. Mere threats between two males may not be enough to settle disputes. Conflict is in the air. There's going to be a fight. Vital food is at stake, so every pine cone is worth fighting for. The victor and his family enjoy the spoils of war. The losers get no more than a few dead leaves and will have fewer energy reserves for the coming winter. A giant tortoise. These creatures can float and live without food or fresh water for long periods of time. This isolated atoll is the perfect refuge. Their only enemy is the sun. Without shade, a tortoise risks being boiled in his shell. So, after feeding in the cool of the morning and before the sun becomes too crushingly hot, they have to find cover. All of them. There is very little vegetation, but caves in the coral rock can provide the shade they so badly need. He's nearly there. All that is left is a white knuckle ride to the bottom. And he's in. Thousands of others are still out in the sun. This tree could shade a couple of hundred if they pack tight. It's bumper-to-bumper parking. Within an hour or so, all must find shade of some sort if they're to survive. But the future for Aldabra's tortoises is far from certain. The climate is changing, sea levels are rising, and Aldabra's tortoises may soon have to find a new refuge or drown. The water that has kept them safe until now is beginning to dry up. Each year, in the space of a few short months, the Llanos is transformed from a flooded paradise to a baking oven. For some babies, the unrelenting heat and the lack of water has already been too much. Any babies that are left alive will certainly die if they stay here. So the mother decides to leave. Calling to her creche, she sets off across the parched land. In one long cavalcade, they march onwards in search of permanent water. For the mother, this is certainly exhausting. For her babies, with their tiny legs, it must be a real marathon. Some start to fall behind. But she stops. The babies call constantly. She knows exactly where they all are and waits until every single one of them has caught up. Only when all are with her will she set off again. At last, safety. The babies are close to exhaustion. Without such devotion from the female, few, if any, of these baby cayman would have survived. And remarkably, most of them aren't even her own. When parental care was first described in crocodiles, the reports were dismissed as too extraordinary to be true. We may call reptiles cold-blooded, but they can show great tenderness. Meadows that only a few weeks ago were buried beneath the snow are now full of life. But in these mountains, the good times will not last long. So the bears must feed as fast as they can. During the summer months, an adult can put on 180 kilos, gorging on plants. And, if they can catch them, a marmot or two. But just now, the bears have something else on their minds. It's becoming warmer, and the bears are keen to shed their thick winter coats. Mothers show the cubs what to do about this. They'll soon catch on. Some trees, it seems, are particularly suitable for rubbing. Bears have their favourites and will travel long distances to visit them. Some itches just have to be scratched. There are now around 30 bears in this one valley. As they rub, each leaves an individual and recognizable scent. So the tree soon carries a list of who's around, which might help individuals to avoid a fight. To best spread their scent, they really have to put their back into it. But summer is short. Itches satisfactorily scratched. It's time to eat. In a couple of months, they will have to return to their dens to hibernate. So now they must put on as much weight as they can. 1,000 million tons of sea creatures ascend from the deep ocean to search for food near the surface. They graze on the phytoplankton under cover of darkness. Even so, they're far from safe. Other marine hunters follow them, some traveling up from hundreds of meters below. At dawn, the whole procession returns to the safety of the dark depths. They're bullied constantly. And forced to live on the fringes of the troop. As outcasts, their only comfort is each other. He's been snatched, stolen by a higher-ranking female. She is childless, and she wants a baby of her own. He's only a few meters away, but if his mother approaches, the rest of the troop could well attack her. The kidnapper has never raised a baby before, so this one is in danger. They're headed towards a cable car tower. The young mother can't let them out of her sight. 30 meters up. If she tries to grab her baby and fails, he could fall to his death. The kidnapper refuses to surrender him. There's one last thing a mother can try, and to do it, she needs to recruit another macaque. Now the mother begins to groom her companions in full view of the kidnapper. All monkeys love to be groomed, even by a low-ranking female. It's the basis for peace in macaque society. Eventually, the urge to join in is just too strong. The kidnap is over, and the youngster can climb back into his mother's arms.
If you want to find the greatest number and variety of animals that communicate with light, you have to go to the darkest place on Earth. Somewhere far beyond the reach of the sun's rays, where human beings hardly ever go, to the depths of the ocean.
This is the Johnson Sea Link. At the front, it has an array of remotely controlled television cameras and searchlights. I'm sitting beside the pilot in the transparent bubble in the middle, and the whole craft is massively strengthened to withstand the huge pressures of the depths. As we go down, it gets darker and darker. The water is thick with small floating organisms.
Okay, Roger, Sam. At 600 feet, the water outside is 20 times atmospheric pressure. The temperature is within a few degrees of freezing, and we're far beyond the reach of the sunshine. So you might think in such a hostile environment there would be very few animals living. But watch this. The chorus of light is being made by hundreds of small deep-sea creatures which are flashing in response to my light. And now, if I turn on the lights of the submersible, we may catch a glimpse of one of these strange deep-sea creatures as it drifts by.
The pilot has remote controls for the camera outside the sub to search for them in the blackness. This is a comb jelly as big as a football. It's been nicknamed Big Red, but it has yet to be given a proper name. It's new to science. Another new undescribed comb jelly. Although specimens have been brought to the surface, it's only been seen alive through the windows of deep-sea craft like this. It uses a pair of long retractable tentacles to catch fish. A jellyfish, Solomyssus, 2 feet across, which, in spite of the changes of pressure, sometimes swims quite close to the surface. Kiomia, another comb jelly, one that is surrounded by gauzy skirts. But for the most sensational spectacle, you have to turn the lights of the submarine off. a jellyfish outlined by its own pulsing illuminations. A squid, its lights moving as its body throbs. Displays like this may serve for defense or to send messages. No one knows. And most spectacular of all, another jellyfish with its own amazing rhythmic flashing system.